Next is a flashback to the past, when Agent Kim had just completed one final mission, but still was not granted freedom. He subdued the general, then demanded that the organization fulfill its promise to let him discharge after so many years of working in the shadows. Right then, the general agreed. But then, in the emergency meeting shortly after, the officers immediately argued about the fate of Kim. Captain Gu Cheol, at that time, vehemently opposed letting Kim discharge. He argued that a dangerous agent like him could not return to society. If the North knew he was still alive, it would cause a diplomatic crisis. He even suggested taking this opportunity to eliminate him, avoiding concerns of bilateral conflict. However, the general rejected all those opinions. After a moment of thought, he affirmed that Agent Kim had contributed more than enough to South Korea, and the organization had repeatedly broken its promise to set him free. So this time, they must keep their word. Furthermore, the North still believed he was dead, so he decided to approve his discharge. Before concluding the meeting, Gu Cheol left a highly suggestive remark. There would be a day when they would need number 66 again, so they must keep him alive until then. Leaving the base quietly, Kim was picked up by Han Soo and Jin Cheol. Both of them continuously teased and congratulated him for finally becoming a normal citizen. Jin Cheol even handed him a piece of white tofu, telling him to take a bite. Kim, out of respect, complied. Han Soo joked, asking if he thought he just got out of prison or something to feed him white tofu. Jin Cheol laughed heartily, saying just go ahead since this was no different from being in prison, then took a bite of the tofu he bought for his friend himself, adding that it was a dish symbolizing a new beginning. Kim only promised that he would keep in touch, then grabbed his backpack and left immediately. The fat guy wanted to go for a celebration feast, but Han Soo stopped him, saying to leave him be. Watching Kim fade into the distance, they also sighed for him. After saying goodbye to Han Soo and Jin Cheol, Kim went alone to the columbarium to visit his late wife, and then went to the hospital to pick up his child. It was precisely because of the moment he wanted to dedicate himself entirely to taking care of Minji that he gathered all his courage to threaten the general into letting him discharge. And holding his tiny child in his arms for the first time, carefully cherishing her, that exact moment turned an assassin who only knew how to live for missions into an ordinary father who would protect his daughter at all costs. Minji, let us go home. Returning to the present, it was the same sentence, but the circumstances were entirely different. Kim took Deputy Minister Im hostage to rescue Minji. He loudly warned that if they made any reckless moves, the man's head would explode. While the two sides were struggling, Jin Cheol still did not forget to complain. Because it was always the same, where he and Han Soo had to do all the heavy lifting, while Kim was always the last to appear. Saying that, he threw the white flag back to Han Soo, casually teasing that it was a smelly sock, which made Han Soo immediately sniff it to see if it was true. Faced with Agent Kim's threat, the entire special task force lowered their guns one by one. Only Captain Gu Cheol remained stubborn and refused to drop his weapon, yelling back, asking how a national security deputy minister could tell soldiers to lower their guns for his sake. Seeing that, Jin Cheol immediately pulled the trigger repeatedly, sending live bullets straight into the pillar right next to him as a warning. It was not until the deputy minister shouted loudly that those were live rounds and demanded they put their guns down that Captain Gu Cheol reluctantly complied, and they were all forced to stand inside a parking square. Just then, Minji ran over and hugged her father tightly from behind. After so much danger, the father and daughter were finally reunited. Kim gently comforted her, telling her to stay behind him and not to worry. Then the little girl followed her father and the hostage back to their side. While everyone was still at a standoff, Jin Cheol took out a fake mine, threatening that if anyone moved, they would all blow up together. Taking that opportunity, the group intended to get into the fat uncle's car to escape, but suddenly remembered that their car's tires had been shot to pieces. Han Soo forced Gu Cheol to hand over his car keys. While he said nothing, his assistant automatically threw the keys to Han Soo to ensure safety. The group figured the old man must be very bitter. Before leaving, Jin Cheol even told the entire special task force to raise their hands high in the sky and sang the Mugunghwa Flower Has Bloomed song, threatening that whoever moved would go boom. So they stood completely still, while Kim's team got into the car and sped away. Upon detecting something suspicious on the agency's monitoring screen, Uncle Lim and Sangha immediately went out to intercept Kim's car. They fired live ammunition. Kim had to tell everyone to get out of the car, while still threatening the hostage. Sangha reminded him not to forget his promise to surrender after finding Minji. Kim calmly replied that he would keep his word, but he had to wait until his daughter was safe first, as he could not trust this place. After that, the two agency operatives had to drop their guns. Kim's entire team quickly left the scene. The car had not driven far before encountering the gate guards, whom they threatened to open the gate. Then, they knocked out the deputy minister, released him, and fled. Along the way, Kim remained focused and held his gun tightly to guard against pursuit, to the point that he did not even hear his daughter tearfully calling him. Hansu had to yell before he was startled and turned around, thinking his child was hurt or sick somewhere. Minji was just crying, constantly checking all over her father's body because she saw he was injured too much. Even though he was covered in blood and had just been shot, he still tried to smile to reassure his daughter that he was completely fine. However, that lie was immediately and accidentally exposed by Hansu, who said her dad just ate a copper candy, which made Minji feel even more heartbroken. Kim blamed himself for arriving too late, leaving his daughter to face her fears alone. But Minji burst into tears and apologized in return. She regretted the words that had hurt her father earlier, and for causing him to worry and risk his life to save her. After all, nobody blamed anyone anymore. The father and daughter just held each other tightly, as if afraid that simply letting go would mean losing each other once again. Seeing his daughter still trembling with fear, the first thing he thought of was whether she was hungry or not. He immediately decided to take the whole group to eat. For him, as long as Minji could have a good meal and sit peacefully beside him, all his wounds no longer mattered. At this time, Chairman Gangchan repeatedly called the deputy minister to see if they had brought the girl Minji back to him yet, but no one answered. He then called Secretary Nam and immediately received a report that about half an hour ago, someone had broken into the special agency and most likely had taken Minji out. Through binoculars, he quickly spotted Agent Kim's car parked in front of a restaurant. Looking at the physique and attire of the man accompanying Minji, he immediately concluded that it was the girl's father. In Chairman Gangchan's mind, the image of his first meeting with Kim also appeared. Back then, wanting to save his daughter, Kim had kneeled before him, desperately begging for forgiveness. Precisely because of that memory, Chairman Gangchan still believed that the man was nothing to be afraid of, and this time he would not be able to escape his grasp either. Chairman Gangchan simply, coldly ordered to bring both the father and daughter to see him, so he could directly eliminate them both. Right after that, when the group of four had just eaten their fill and happily got into the car to head home, they were suddenly overtaken and blocked by a container truck. While stopped at a red light, two other vehicles closed in on both sides, along with a forklift that suddenly rushed in from behind. Outside, no one could see the scene of a group of masked men jumping down to deflate the tires, screw the doors shut, then use the forklift to lift the entire car into the container, scooping up the whole group inside and driving off. These three uncles were completely capable of fighting back, but because Minji was there, they were forced to stay put and monitor the situation. The little girl was also very strong. After recharging her energy, she turned to tell her father that she would not be afraid, because she was his daughter. After feeling too suffocated inside the car, Jin Chael opened the sunroof to climb outside. But inside the sealed container, the group quickly discovered that sleeping gas was continuously being pumped inside. Kim pulled Minji into his embrace, gently coaxing her to sleep so she would not be afraid. Jin Chol tried to find a way to escape, while Hansu gradually could not resist the sleepiness. Even Jin Chael could not take it anymore, and told Hansu to open the car door to let him in. But this glasses-wearing uncle played hardball, deciding to be ruthless to Jin Chael to save a little more oxygen for Minji. The fat uncle could no longer endure it, and also fell unconscious. A few minutes later, the container stopped at a deserted quarry. Nam ordered the doors open to check. Seeing that the whole group had collapsed, he immediately stepped inside to prepare to pull them out. Kim and Hansu instantly drove the car out of the container, smashing the doors to confront the enemy, and a chaotic brawl broke out. Nam discovered Minji was not in the car, so he peeked into the container and saw the fat guy lying in there, with someone looking like the little girl lying near the front end of the container. He jumped up to check, and right at that moment, Jin Chol unexpectedly sprang up. Still drowsy, he hurriedly popped a coffee candy to try and stay awake, and was just asking the opponent for a bottle of water when Nam launched an attack right away. Then, he ordered the driver to leave immediately with the target. The uncle also got annoyed, so he went in and closed the door to keep Minji safe inside, before turning around to punch back and counterattack outside. The two men quickly overpowered the entire group of bodyguards. Seeing the cargo truck taking his daughter away, Kim hurriedly ran up a high slope, gathered all his momentum, and jumped down onto the roof of the truck like a real-life superhero. Meanwhile, Hansu stayed behind, continuously throwing taekwondo kicks to take down the opponents. As for Jin Cheol inside, he encountered a heavyweight who knew how to use a karambit knife, meaning he must be an imported foreign bodyguard. The uncle laughed heartily, enjoying it even more. In just a moment, all of Chairman Gang Chan's underlings were lying defeated on the ground. Only Nam remained the most resilient to the beatings. Even though the opponent had extremely fast speed and delivered vicious strikes, Jin Cheol, with his muscular physique, used overwhelming strength, repeatedly smashing his head into the side of the truck before lifting him up and throwing him out onto the rocky ground. Kim managed to take down the driver, saving the steering wheel before crashing into the mountain, then returned to find Hansu. After wiping out all the enemies, an exhausted Hansu sat flat on the ground, complaining about how he always had to do the heaviest physical labor. His two teammates arrived and carried the still deeply sleeping Minji, placing her safely into another car. Hansu and Jin Cheol looked at the battlefield, full of defeated enemies lying scattered in the dirt pit, which they originally dug for these uncles to use. But who would have thought they would end up lying there themselves? Kim drove the car away, looking at his friends and daughter sleeping exhaustedly in the vehicle. He decided to end this war once and for all by heading straight to Gang Chan's luxurious mansion to have an adult conversation. Kim told his two friends to watch over Minji, while he went inside alone, taking down each bodyguard one by one, then walked straight into the living room to find Chairman Gang Chan. Yet, the man was already sitting there waiting for him, greeting him with a bright smile. Facing Gang Chan, Kim bluntly questioned if he felt any shame for indulging in all sorts of crimes, from bullying and kidnapping to attempting to take his daughter's life, all for the sake of his own daughter. But Gang Chan calmly replied that he was only fulfilling his proper duty as a father. In his eyes, Agent Kim was no different, as they were both willing to use violence to protect their daughters. He even offered to recruit Agent Kim to work for him with a salary of 100 million won per month. He also proudly stated that he was doing a favor for Kim and his daughter, mocking that pride was not worth as much as money, bringing up the time he kneeled to beg his daughter, asking why he would not agree, and asserting that the most shameful thing for a father is lacking the ability to provide for his child. Hearing that, Kim completely lost his temper. He lunged forward, subduing Chairman Gang Chan, and continuously delivered blows, saying that the only way to keep his daughter safe was to finish Gang Chan off. The opponent could not even breathe under the attacks, crawling and rolling outside. Just as Kim was about to throw the finishing punch, Minji hurriedly got out of the car to stop her father, so he held his hand. Kim forced Chairman Gang Chan to kneel down and sincerely apologize to his child. The man was forced to kneel and bow his head in admission of his wrongs, while Minji merely calmly demanded that he and his daughter turn themselves in and pay the price for what they had done. Upon bringing his daughter back home, Kim personally prepared a meal and a late birthday present for Minji. The father and daughter quietly ate their last meal together. Knowing that her father was about to leave, as many soldiers and police officers were waiting for him outside, Minji tried to suppress her sorrow but still could not hold back her tears. And Kim also, for the first time, told his child about his past. He said his daughter was as beautiful as her mother, and that he was very happy being Minji's father, but after this, they would have to say goodbye. He could not promise he would return, but Minji promised to be strong and wait for him. Right after that, the general arrived with his troops. Agent Kim stepped out to surrender on his own accord, and in exchange, he demanded that Minji must be absolutely protected and safe. Honoring the agreement, the general solemnly promised to use his honor to guarantee it. Trusting that promise, Kim calmly offered both hands to be handcuffed and left with them. Both Hansu and Jin Cheol were also arrested right at that moment. Now, the empty house was left with only Minji. The little girl sadly went back to her room and looked at the photo taken with her father earlier. Opening her father's gift, it was a designer shirt with a note saying that this was very expensive, so keep it carefully. Of course, Dad. But perhaps it was only after the tragedy that the little girl realized she had never cherished the most precious thing in this world, which was her father's love. After the incident, Chairman Gang Chan carried his heavily bruised face and still sought ways to cover up his daughter's case, rather than confessing, as he promised Minji, hiring top law firms to bribe the politicians. Meanwhile, there was still a danger to Gang Chan that he had not realized. The gold tooth guy had returned, and replaced his entire set of teeth with glowing gold dentures, his resentful eyes gleaming with a blood feud that must be avenged. Along with that, Uncle Lim of the laundromat also announced its closure because the mission to watch over Kim had ended. Sangha was demoted and disciplined for failing to complete the mission. Meanwhile, number 66 of North Korea was nursing his wounds, waiting for the day he recovered, and always listening for news about Agent Kim. The Special Mission Agency was forced to cover up the entire truth. However, the news that Agent Kim was still alive had also reached the hands of North Korea. Thus, under diplomatic pressure, he was brought to a top-secret detention facility. When the room door opened, the people standing in front of him were precisely the group from the north. An injection to the neck made him pass out. By the time he woke up, he vaguely saw familiar old slogans. The room was full of brutal physical torture tools. A person in a North Korean military uniform smiled and raised a red-hot iron bar, saying, "Welcome back home." He was tied tightly to a chair. And then, what horrifying things would continue to befall Kim? Firing extremely strong electric currents straight into Kim's body, the officer shouted and forced him to confess the identities of his teammates belonging to the South Korean unit and the secret agents planted in the north. Despite the ultimate pain, Kim remained resolute and did not utter a single word. When the electric torture proved ineffective, they proceeded to execute a savage waterboarding punishment by placing a wet towel over his face and continuously pouring water to cut off his oxygen supply. In the moments nearing the boundary of life and death, his mind only pictured the image of his late wife and his beloved daughter, Minji. Realizing that ordinary threats or coaxing were useless, the officer poked at his greatest weakness. He approached closely, leaned into his ear, and threatened to capture Minji and force the little girl to endure similar brutal torture. The direct threat to his daughter's life reached the absolute limit of the former agent's endurance. Fury exploded, but Kim was locked tightly to the chair, leaving only the option to play dead so the man would let his guard down. Right when he stepped close to check, Kim grabbed him so the electricity would shock them both and let out a furious roar. With extraordinary physical strength surpassing all human limits, he managed to rip his hands from the locks and broke free. However, as soon as he threw open the wooden door of the dark room, Kim was stunned to face the General and Special Task Force Captain Gucheol in a bright and modern SMD office. It turned out that the entire North Korean setting and the brutal torture earlier were just an extremely strict test aimed at challenging the absolute loyalty and endurance limit of the legendary agent. The General stepped forward to welcome him, saying, "Welcome back to the Republic of Korea." The General and Gucheol explained that they needed to be sure Kim would not utter a single word under any form of cruel torture by the enemy. This top-secret mission was to protect a high-ranking defector from North Korea who came to South Korea seeking asylum. In the context of the upcoming North-South Summit, the political situation was extremely sensitive, and the South Korean side had to completely deny hiding this figure from the media and the international community. If Kim completed the mission excellently until the North Korean delegation withdrew, he and his daughter would gain complete freedom, along with a new legal identity. Kim accepted the mission, but laid down a prerequisite, which was to release his two old comrades who had gone through life and death with him, Hansu and Jin-chul. At this moment, Hansu and Jin-chul were still chained and detained in the isolated section of the Special Mission Agency SMD. While Hansu silently endured, Jin-chul was like a demon with his mouth locked by a leather strap. The uncle continuously growled aggressively, wanting to scratch and bite the iron door, and complained about being hungry. The SMD agents received orders to change the detention location for these two uncles, but recognized their danger. The SMD agents decided to use tranquilizer guns to attack through the iron door slot, instead of opening the door directly. Hansu immediately showcased his martial arts mastery by dodging the tranquilizer darts skillfully, with incredibly fast body-bending movements. He was afraid that if he were taken down, he did not know what they would do to his body. In the next room, Jin-chul was continuously hit by countless tranquilizer darts, but his monstrous physique kept the uncle awake and roaring madly. Finally, increasing the dosage beyond the lethal limit for humans managed to bring this uncle down. To retaliate against the stubbornness and disruptive behavior of the two former agents, the SMD team threw both of them into a desolate empty plot near the coast of Haenim, the southernmost tip of the country, hundreds of kilometers away from Seoul at dawn, accompanied by throwing the bunch of keys on the ground for them to unlock their own chains. After using his feet skillfully to get the keys and free himself, Hansu wanted to tease his friend in misery. so he threw the keys far away while he himself continued to find his way home. Then, he walked into a local convenience store to ask for directions. When Hansu asked the female store owner where this place was, she casually replied, Haenim. Hansu could not believe his ears, and asked again if it was the remote Cape Land and not some urban area near Seoul. The annoyed store owner yelled, asking why he had so many questions, and told him to go somewhere else so she could watch television if he was not buying anything. So, he even got scolded and called a crazy guy. Heartbroken, Hansu walked out, only to see Jinchil dragging himself over. The two sat on the porch of the convenience store, snacking on the coffee candies they had kept in their pockets, then agreed that since they had no money to catch a ride, they would just have to walk back. In another development, Chairman Gang Chan still could not forget the beating of a lifetime from Agent Kim. The scene of being beaten black and blue, and then having to kneel to apologize to Minji, kept flashing back in his mind. Sitting silently in front of the family photo, he decided to protect his daughter to the end. The next day, Chairman Gang Chan met with Assemblyman Shin at the golf course to discuss the Inter-Korean Summit. Outwardly, both still smiled and talked happily, congratulating Gang Chan's resort for being chosen as the reception place for the North Korean delegation. Because if the negotiations succeeded, the Free Trade Zone project would also pave the way for his construction company to make a fortune. It was truly a case of national affairs being just an excuse, while personal business was the real goal. By the way, Gang Chan also asked about the investigation results regarding Kim and his daughter, but Assemblyman Shin only shook his head. The police found no records at all. Two people had never existed in South Korea, with no identity and no trace, and since there were no victims, there could not be any criminal case involving Gang Chan's daughter either. Just after saying that, he saw Gang Chan's expression change, so he knew he had misspoken and could only force a smile to apologize. After a walking journey that felt like his legs were about to fall off, Jinchil finally managed to drag himself back home. The uncle was so moved that he almost cried, thanking heaven for surviving and returning. He thought there would be a tearful reunion, but unexpectedly, his daughter just nonchalantly asked if her dad went somewhere, then looked at the shirt on his body with a look full of despair, and even declared that if he did not throw that shirt away, she would leave home. The first shock having just passed, the uncle then begged his wife for pity after starving for several days. But the only response he got was a cold sentence. Stand still there. Go take a shower first. Returning to Kim, he executed the solo mission, having to drive a black 7-seater car by himself to pick up the defector at the harbor at midnight. When the two sides met, they flashed their headlights from afar to signal. After that, the defector got into the back seat of the car. As Kim started to speak, he was shocked to realize that it was none other than former director Dong, his sworn enemy, and the person directly responsible for the demise of all of Kim's old comrades in an infiltration operation 20 years ago. It was that exact cruel incident that helped him get promoted to the director position. Dong sat in the back of the car with an arrogant and smug attitude. He laughed, claiming that South Korea had to protect him at all costs, so they had to send their best agent to guard him, and having Kim here was exactly by the book. Going back a few days ago in North Korea, right when the Inter-Korean Summit was about to take place, a major internal crisis erupted. A general furiously questioned why Director Dong arbitrarily sent assassins to South Korea to search for a wanted agent. But he blatantly retorted that he was only eliminating a traitor, and declared that no one should stand in his way. Right after that, a shocking intelligence report was announced. All top-secret documents regarding the ballistic missile program had been leaked to South Korea. The superiors immediately identified the main suspect as Dong, the former head of military intelligence. The military police quickly stormed into his office, arresting him on charges of rebellion and counter-revolution. But this veteran spy used the excuse of putting on his coat to suddenly pull out a gun and shoot down all the capturing soldiers, then defected to China and requested asylum in South Korea. By the time he was sitting in Agent Kim's car, Dong leisurely revealed his true identity, proudly saying that all the secrets about the ballistic missile program were in his head and now escort him to a safe place. That statement alone was enough to show why both sides were willing to do whatever it takes to get him. When the car moved to a safe house villa located deep in a remote, dense forest, 2 SMD agents were already waiting there to take over. But the old director still maintained his arrogant attitude, as right upon stepping out of the car, he complained that South Korea's reception for a distinguished guest was too shoddy and even urged everyone to lead the way quickly. as if he were the one giving orders. At that moment, Kim took the chance to ask Sangha about Minji. She informed him that SMD had taken the girl to a secret protective location. On the other side, Minji was escorted into a car by Captain Guchiol and other agents. The little girl continuously asked in panic where her father was and if anything had happened. But the only response was a reassurance that her father was still alive, and if everything went smoothly, the father and daughter would meet again in a few days. As for whether they could actually meet, all depended on Agent Kim's current mission. While the two SMD agents checked all the entrances and then tightly drew the curtains to turn the house into an impenetrable fortress, Kim quietly looked at Ungdong with eyes full of hatred, because this old man was the one who indirectly sent all his comrades to their deaths 20 years ago. Just thinking about it was enough to make him want to personally finish off his enemy. But then, his promise to Minji flashed in his mind, that she would bravely wait for her father to return, along with the general's promise to give the father and daughter a new identity if he completed the mission. Kim tightly gripped the small photo of his daughter in his hand, swallowed his hatred, and told himself that this time he had to complete the mission at all costs. Meanwhile, the North Korean delegation was also present at the Duha Corporation's resort to inspect the venue for the Inter-Korean Summit. The South Korean side introduced this as a place that met all the security requirements they had laid out, from prohibiting civilian access to not having any high-rise buildings within a 2-kilometer radius. After inspecting each area and the room for the head of the delegation, everything met the requirements. Afterwards, Deputy Minister Im went to see Chairman Gang Chan with a face still full of resentment over his humiliation before Agent Kim. He revealed that Codename 66 was currently taking on a mission to protect an extremely important defector in exchange for a pardon, but all information was kept top secret. Hearing this, Chairman Gang Chan immediately asked for Kim's whereabouts because after the previous defeat, he finally had a chance to plan out getting back both principal and interest. On another timeline, Hansu and Jincheol dragged each other to drink beer to drown their sorrows. Hansu lamented that his martial arts dojo was essentially out of business since the fight with SMD. Parents simultaneously withdrew their children from classes and even gave the uncle the nickname Violent Martial Arts Master. Jincheol was no better off, as his entire weapons armory was confiscated clean, making him feel such a stinging loss as if he had lost a whole flock of children. The two uncles drank while complaining to the heavens and earth, and ultimately concluded that it was all Kim's fault, and this time he had to fend for himself. But just as the two were clinking glasses, Hansu unexpectedly received a call from the police station, reporting that his son had just caused a serious fight with a group of students from another school. He immediately went back to bail his son out. After arriving back at the Taekwondo dojo, Hansu decided to teach his son an unforgettable lesson about the morals of a martial artist, instead of just letting violence reign supreme. He sternly shouted at his son to put on protective gear to spar directly with him. Faced with his father's superior martial arts level, the boy was completely countered. Hansu stood tall, deterring his son about the physical pain of the victims he had hit, and the responsibility of a martial artist when abusing force instead of protecting the weak. At the safe house, Ungdong leisurely watched the news report about the North Korean delegation arriving in South Korea, while Agent Kim never took his eyes off any movements outside. The old director mocked that he was just a traitor caught alive and then surrendered, but Kim did not even bother to reply. Meanwhile, at the welcome party in the Duha Corporation resort, the North Korean delegation almost ignored Chairman Gang Chan, even though he bowed and welcomed them very warmly. Right then, the North Korean side received intelligence confirming that Ungdong was being secretly protected by South Korea and immediately ordered a search at all costs. Realizing the opportunity had come, Chairman Gang Chan took the initiative to meet the head of the delegation, revealing that the person escorting Ungdong was none other than Codename 66 in exchange for a chance at revenge. He even brought gold to bribe them, asking for only one thing, which was to let him be the one to take his life. Thanks to Chairman Gang Chan's wide network of connections, the location of the safe house was quickly exposed and immediately reported to the North Korean delegation. Just a few minutes later, an elite agent team surrounded the house. Detecting the anomaly through the security cameras, Agent Kim immediately woke up Ungdong, turned off all the lights, and let the two SMD agents disguise themselves as the old director to intentionally bait the enemy into pursuing them, while he secretly led the target to retreat through another route. Escaping the encirclement, Agent Kim suddenly noticed something strange. The enemy had multiple chances to open fire, but only sought to capture Ungdong alive. Right at that moment, he also realized an even more terrifying thing, which was that the safe house being discovered so quickly proved there was very likely a mole within SMD. Therefore, Kim immediately instructed Sangha not to report to anyone, including the general, that Ungdong had escaped into a residential area, so the North Korean side was forced to retreat. Just then, Chairman Gangchan suggested a plan to the delegation to make a big fuss about this incident, creating pressure from the South Korean side instead of continuing the hunt. Sure enough, right after that, SMD also tracked down Agent Kim's whereabouts, while Kim brought Ungdong to Jinchul's place to temporarily hide, planning to lay low in the city during the day and wait until dark to continue moving. Ungdong even mocked that the three men who were once the nightmare of North Korea were now gathered right in front of him on South Korean soil. At this moment, a convoy of strange cars unexpectedly appeared outside. Thinking Agent Kim had called for backup, unexpectedly, the person walking in was Captain Gucheol, along with SMD forces. Upon subduing the entire group, Captain Gucheol immediately announced he would take Ungdong back to North Korea, then turned to force Agent Kim to betray the mission, saying he had failed. He also showed him a phone displaying an image of Minji being held at SMD, using that as a hostage and a weak point to force Kim to comply. Alright, today the movie episode ends here, and this is just my objective review analysis of the movie episode. To support the film crew and fully enjoy every single moment, you guys should go to the cinema or watch it on official platforms. Thank you guys for watching, and see you guys in the next movie review analysis. Bye.